Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm the Stratch Professor, and today we're starting a brand new campaign with Throt with the Skaven. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. If you'd like to see a specific campaign yourself, just email me at thestratchprofessor@gmail.com. Let me know what you have in mind. I'm happy to do any campaign that you'd like for $3 an episode, minimum 10 episodes. But do contact me first before the donation if you want to do that, just so that I can kind of let you know what the timeline might look like on that. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. Now, Skaven has been one of my favorite factions of all time. I would say in Warhammer 2 it was my favorite. In Warhammer 3, honestly, I haven't been able to play it yet, so I think I will really enjoy it. I do like Slaanesh. I do like Nurgle. There are a lot of other factions in Warhammer 3 that I enjoy as well, but I just really like factions that can be aggressive, expand quickly, and don't have to worry too much about various territories. And ones that have lots of tactical difference, where there are, so many different ways you could approach the campaign. And I think Skaven is probably the most tactically diverse race out there. There are a lot of units that are viable. There are very few that aren't that great. And each lord actually is themed around a different set of units, and they start in a very different location in the world. Now, there are more and more factions that are kind of moving in that way, but I think Skaven does it better than anybody in terms of giving you a different experience, even though you're playing the same race, if you pick the different lords. So, and I think they're all pretty good. They even made Tretch a little bit better in terms of actually giving him some interesting interactions. He used to be kind of the most, lame, I guess, in terms of his faction abilities. He didn't have much of an identity, but now he's got a little bit of a more clear identity, so even he's pretty fun. But we're going with Throt. I've only played a Throt campaign once when he very first came out, and he is one of my favorites. He's great if you really like to min-max, because a lot of things we're going to be doing in the labs will have negative consequences as well as positive ones. So you've got a lot of choices to make with Throt, and I think that makes it really fun. Okay, so he has the Flesh Lab, which we'll go over when we get in there. He specializes in the Skaven monsters. All characters get an extra 10% hit points. He's immune to mountain attrition, which is handy because he's near a lot of mountains. And the construction costs for the buildings that build the monsters are also cheaper. For Throt specifically, he gets minus 20% upkeep for all monsters and the dogs, which is good. He personally has regeneration. He can get on the back of a mutated rat ogre, I think, or some kind of large mount. So that's really good later on to have regeneration on something like that. And then I think some of those might regenerate anyways, but it's still good. Then he has this beast pack where basically you can summon a free rat ogres once per battle. Master controller, which is effectively extra melee and melee defense and leadership. Now it says all allies in range. I feel like this might just be monsters, but I'm not 100% about that. I mean, that's very similar to like the Empire. I forgot what it's called, but Empire like has an aura that's sort of like that. And then you get plus 10 armor for all monsters as well. And this is actually quite strong because the armor on most of these monsters is pretty low. Like rat ogres are 30, mutant rat ogres are 30. A lot of them do not have great armor, so that's actually a pretty big bonus. Okay, and of course we're doing legendary very hard, and let's get in here. So they have made several adjustments to Skaven. And I actually have a little sheet over here just to remind me of some of these. And I just want to hit on these really quickly. So for the first episode, I am going to talk for probably maybe the first 15 minutes or so, just to kind of set out a bunch of the different choices that you can make and some of the changes they've made in Warhammer 3 if you haven't played them in a while. And then we will get some fights, and we will go through and get a lot more aggressive, and we'll crank up the tempo. But that first episode, I just like to lay that out just if you want to play along at home and play your own Skaven campaign, and you want to kind of, notice some of the things that I point out that could be useful to know. I always just like to give that to you in the first episode. So overall, corruption is one of the biggest changes to Skaven. So back in the day when they were released in Warhammer 2, they had an interesting min-max quality to them where you kind of had a choice. There were certain buildings that would clean up the Skaven corruption. So, for example, this used to clean your own corruption. And if you had a nice, clean area, then you got bonus public order, which is called control now. So you got a lot of bonus public order if you kept it clean. However, if you let it get dirty with the corruption, then eventually you could summon more menace from below. And they added this little corruption tab here. I don't know if they always told you this, or maybe I just didn't notice, but now you can see how many menace from below you'll get in a province and how much it's affecting public order. So you used to always have this tension of, do I want more public order, or do I want to be able to summon more menace from below in an area? Well, now you don't have that tension, which I kind of liked it. That was an interesting sort of flavor to the Skaven, and had a min-max quality to it. But now corruption is just always good, and you want to max it. So they basically just count it as any other type of corruption, where as it goes up, you get an increasing amount of control, and you get extra food now from that. Now, fixing the food problem is great, because that was a huge problem with Skaven as well, is you didn't have a lot of great ways to passively get food from your towns. You just had to constantly win more battles, which again was interesting, because you're like this ravenous, you know, swarm of rats that will just fall apart if you're not constantly killing people and getting more food. So I kind of like that, but it was also a little bit frustrating, especially once you got a really huge empire. It was hard to keep up with the food, particularly because they gave you that penalty on Legendary of 15% extra upkeep for every additional army that you had. So it was this compounding problem as you tried to take over the map as Skaven. And there were very limited things that would give you more food. Some places with fields, things like with exotic animals would sometimes give you some food. But it was hard to manage. But now it's a lot easier if you just keep the place corrupt. I don't know how much food you ultimately get. I assume it's probably something like 5. If it's 10, that's probably OP. Again, I haven't played through this in a while, but I like that they are giving you some food. So you just always want to max out that corruption, and they're very good at doing that. Like, almost all of their buildings give corruption, and then several of their buildings actually take away corruption from the enemy. So this is -1 all corruption, -2 all corruption. So they're very good at controlling corruption in an area and swinging it really quickly. Even if you're expanding into corrupted areas, you can overwhelm the enemy corruption a lot of the time. Okay. Although their units, I don't believe many of their units spread corruption. I can't remember precisely. And that is something that's different from, you know, a lot of the demons and a lot of the chaotic things. It's usually or like vampires, usually their units will spread corruption to some extent too. But I don't believe you do that by default, although you can spec into that if you want to, by going corruptive. But you can also go anti-corruptive and remove all of their corruption, which is incredibly powerful, I think, to be able to drop some of that chaotic corruption or vampiric corruption quickly. So that's the big one. Very good at controlling that, and it also does affect public order for enemies now, I believe, too. If they're in the area, it will cause attrition, and if they try to occupy areas with your corruption, it will cause public order problems. Whereas before, it didn't do that. They didn't take damage in your area, but now it's even more defensive than it was if they try to step into your property and start taking attrition, so that's good. Okay, buildings. Now, some of these changes are a little bit older, but again, I just kind of want to point these out for those of you that are old school that haven't played Skaven in a while. This income from all buildings plus 30%, this used to be, I believe, even a tier 1 building. It might have been tier 2, but they've bumped it up to tier 3 now. So you don't get the same level of multiplier that you used to be able to get, but you still have very efficient gold. A lot of these entry-level buildings are only 250 gold. It's costing 10% more because I don't have enough food right now on turn 1. But 250 gold to get 80 gold per turn, it pays for itself in 3 turns. So you're not going to see, like, huge gold buildings like you might with Slaanesh or something, but they're so cheap to just expand really quickly, take over a bunch of property, and just drop rubbish pits and rattling warrens everywhere. And you'll start making quite a bit of gold pretty quickly. Even the upgrade at tier 2 is very cost efficient. It's just 500 gold and you get 40 more per turn, so it pays for itself in whatever that is, 12 or 13 turns. So that's very good. Also, I don't think you'll need to get the Taskmaster's platform as much as often, because you're going to be getting that extra corruption, or that extra public order from your corruption now. So that can save you a lot of money too. And I believe that used to be a 1500 gold building. So they've made it a lot cheaper to set up, you know, new places as you expand quickly. So I like that theme. With the scavenging pile, they did get rid of the +1 recruitment capacity. I believe it was the tier 2 that used to give you +1 recruitment capacity, which was really nice. If you got a bunch of those, you know, you could hire 6 or 7 units in a town. So they've nerfed that, but your main town does give you +1, and there are some really early technologies and other ways that you can increase your recruitment capacity. So not as strong as it used to be, but still pretty good. I will note that this generator at tier 4 does give you 1 food as well. If you are sort of having a hard time with food, that can help out there. A couple other buildings that are changed. Obviously, they've added these in with Clan Molder. They're very cheap, very effective buildings. And, like with a lot of factions, you can get your heroes much earlier now. So, the Engineer and the Plague Priest used to be tier 4, now they're tier 3. It's still really hard to get a lot of them because you don't get +1 capacity, I think, until you get to tier 5. So that's obviously a really, really long time away. Oh, no, you get them at tier 4 with the Pestilent Knave. And then the Warplock Engineer, you do not get an extra one of those until tier 5. So you can get some more casters at tier 4, but not the Engineers that are incredibly powerful, as you know if you've ever played Skaven, because they can create undercities, which I'll just show you those when you get there, but they're just really strong in general too. They have like okay magic, good sort of passive bonuses from the increased mobility, and they add a lot of buffs to your ranged units, like your weapons teams and your catapults, which is really nice. Now, I will say as well, it looks like the catapults have been nerfed quite significantly, and I know this used to be one of the strongest units in the game, in my opinion. The numbers on it still look okay, but the big problem is the AI is way, way smarter, at least on Legendary or whatever the highest difficulty battle AI. They will dodge this a lot, so they'll know exactly who you're firing on, and then they'll just run. So that was my experience with mortars, at least, when I tried to like just practice running through an Empire campaign. So they are a lot better at these slow-moving projectile artillery pieces. So we'll still get some out and try them, but I have a feeling they're not going to dominate nearly as hard as they used to. So just be aware of that. You still want to get this building ASAP to get the Engineer, and we will get a couple of Plague Claws, but you want to diversify a little bit more. If you use something like 4 Plague Claws in the past, which is pretty common in a lot of my early compositions. The weapons dump. These weapons teams, the early ones are incredibly powerful, and I think they've buffed them quite a bit. The later ones may have been nerfed a little bit, but you want these early. First up, you get these Warp Grinders, which do a lot of damage. 96, very heavily armor-penetrating damage. They have 70 armor. They have really low melee defense, so you don't want them to front line. But if you sprinkle these in with your infantry, they do a ton of damage. And they have this ability that only hits enemies that does 90 to 180 damage per second for 17 seconds. And you can just keep using this over and over again in combat. It is a lot. It will completely destroy early infantry. It's incredibly strong. And they can not only drill down sort of the main gates on sieges, but they can actually drill into the walls. So these are really, really good units. You definitely want like 1 or 2 of those in every armory. Obviously, you don't want a ton, but they're very nice to sprinkle in. And then the Warp Fire Throwers. I believe they've reduced the cost on these. They're only 138 now. I feel like they used to be closer to 200, or maybe it was 175. I could be wrong about that, but they seem to have quite a bit of ammo to it. 18. Still do pretty respectable damage. They are reasonably fast at 38 for a weapons team. They have 70 armor, so I think they are a lot better than like the Dwarf Flamethrowers, just because they can actually reposition around the flanks and fire down the edge. And they do fire damage, which we'll see with the mutant stuff from your labs. You can get an upgrade on some of your beasts that actually makes the enemy weak against fire damage. So you could potentially do even 20% more damage off of these. But I think that these will be a little bit stronger just because the catapults might be weaker. So they're going to be coming in with a lot more infantry when they engage you than they used to have when the catapults would thin them out more. So that will leave a little bit more space for the Warp Fire Throwers to be good. Now, the annoying thing about these is kind of, you know, what's always been annoying about these types of units or gunpowder units is they have a really hard time on sieges because of the walls. They have a hard time with hills, trees, any sort of terrain that's like blocking their shot. And they don't really fire into friendly units that well. So their sort of AI can be very frustrating to work around sometimes. But when they actually are firing on units, they do a lot of damage. And then these things, again, I think are cheaper than they used to be and are quite strong. They do 40 damage now up front. Pretty heavy armor-piercing damage, and it does basically this bleed over time. I don't remember how long this lasts. I think it's like 5 seconds. But that's a lot of extra damage when you're landing that on the enemy. Very similar to the warp fire throwers in many respects. The main thing about these guys is they lob their stuff. So they do have a similar range, but they actually can fire over walls when you're sieging, and that's really, really good if you can just find that sweet spot where you're just, you know, throwing these, you know, poison flasks and just hitting the people over the walls. It can be really good. And they can fire over your frontline units and hit the enemies like infantry units. So they will friendly fire some of your units occasionally, but nevertheless, they are quite strong. It says they're anti-large. I think that's just a relic of the past. I believe they used to do bonus to large maybe, but they don't seem like they would be that crazy. Their plume or whatever, their area of effect is smaller than the purple version. So they don't devastate infantry quite as hard as the purple ones, but they're still really good at tier 3. Then you have these rattling guns, again, because the catapults, I suspect, will be a little bit weaker. These are going to hopefully shore up some of that. These are a little bit cheaper too. I think these used to be like $250. They slow units down by 30%, and they do very heavy damage and heavy armor-piercing damage, which is very useful because Skaven don't have a lot of amazing armor-piercing units, especially in melee. So being able to soften up some of those heavily armored targets is handy. And then your later game units, I think, have been nerfed a little bit. I believe the mortars used to do more damage. I could be wrong about that. Their cost is about what it used to be, maybe even slightly higher. And because, again, it's a mortar type of unit, I think the enemy's going to be able to dodge fairly effectively. Now, there are 12 of these things firing instead of 4 catapults, so I think there's a higher chance that you're going to hit some more people with it, but again, it's kind of rough. Now, in sieges, these are fantastic because they can comfortably fire really high over the walls into the enemy infantry that's already going to be engaged and do a lot of damage. So you still want to get those. Those are still great. Snipers, really good at picking off enemy lords. Haven't really changed much. Still going to be a good, you know, 1 or 2 unit that you want. And these Deathglow Bombardiers, you want to upgrade to these from the green ones if you can afford them. They do a lot more upfront damage. They don't have the bleed, but they do still have very heavy armor-piercing damage, and they spread a lot more, like I said before. So I think usually they're considered a pretty strong upgrade. And then as far as everything else, I believe you may want some chieftains. Now, I don't remember if any of these guys can get the thing that gives the physical resist to your allied units, your allied wards and heroes. But I know you can get a Mutation Guardian is the effect. You can get a Mutation Guardian that will basically give all of your hero units an extra, I think it's 15% physical resist. So getting a lot of these heroes is good. And you actually do get a lot of these. You get +1 chieftain for every tier 2 unit, or tier 2 building here. You get extra assassins, and these pack masters, you also get extra one of those. So I think you just want a lot of heroes in these armies if you can get them, just because, again, Skaven can struggle pretty hard dealing with enemy heroes and especially armored units, because your infantry overall is pretty weak compared to most other infantry in the game. And, of course, you can get a bunch of items. I don't remember if this guy has a mount or not. I don't think he does, but nevertheless, he's heavily armored, and he can just help you take care of business, and he's not that expensive, so those are good. The assassins aren't great in combat. They're okay. They do have the replenished troop, which is good. I believe the Packmaster also can get replenished troop eventually. So these are just kind of handy to have around, but they can assassinate enemy heroes to stop them from pestering you, and they can assault units to soften them up for you. So they do have a lot of uses if you do want to get some assassins, and they're pretty cheap. The rest of this tree is pretty garbage, though, to be honest. You would want to get this on the Clan Eshin guy, maybe, but with Throt, you really don't want this. And then eventually getting up to Storm Vermin are good, but they are expensive, and for a lot of the game, you'd probably just rather spend that money on monsters. But we'll see where we go. Okay, let's go ahead and get some fights, and then I'll explain a couple of the other things here.
twist, bend, mangle.
Now I do want, and I'll explain this a little bit more, this lab, but again, I want to break this up with a fight here. So I think early on, you want to use the mutagen. You get 50% off if you mutate a unit that's already mutated. Well, I'll talk about the rest of this stuff in a second. How are we looking on time here? Yeah, we've already talked too much. We need to get into a fight. Okay. Mutate him there. Okay, so he's got instability 2 now, which is not great for us, but...
For science!
Oh, he's got instability 3. Okay, yeah, he's probably going to get wiped. But we're just trying to buff these up a little bit so that we can get to Guardian right there, where you can get your unit's Guardian. What does the 7 mean? Is that how many augments he has? 7 different qualities, yeah. We get a lot of juice for him, though. Wow. 150 juice. If he doesn't die. So when a unit is at this, then he basically takes damage over time until he gets to 25% health. You can get to 4. I think you can get to 4, which is where he just will die in combat. So you got to be real careful there. But you can basically recycle him, which is kill him, and it gives you some more juice, which we'll talk about later. But I just wanted to mod him before we get into this fight. And then let's get into a fight here, and then we'll talk some.
Master of Beast Beasts. Clan strongest best with that, Master.
Okay. And I think we can just go ahead and take her out.
I am Throt.
They did nerf the ambush stance. I don't know if this is just for Throt or for everybody, but it's minus 15% if you attack for the ambush. Now, if you just do normal ambush, like defensive ambush, then you don't get the penalty. But when you're attacking, which is probably fair, ambush was an incredibly powerful trait. Okay. Ooh, I don't want that. Okay, so if you get in a yellow, then you start getting leadership penalties and all these other penalties with your food. Now it's... Oh, it only costs 3 food. Okay, I'm pretty sure it used to cost 5. Okay, so they lowered the cost. This allows us to summon clan rats. Now, what... So they have one of these giant cats. We want to keep that away from our rat ogres. It has bonus versus large. This thing has a lot of modifications, but it's really not that great. These spears, sword. Now these 2 dudes are anti-large, so we want to put that on the cat and the horses if we can. I haven't played a lot against Kislev either. I haven't played factions that interact with Kislev too much, so I think we should be able to beat these guys. I think 3 is probably... Can I get away with 2? I'm just not sure how like dangerous this is going to be. She has no armor. We should be able to clap her. Alright, I'm just going to do 2. It's saying that it's going to be hard, though. We'll try it out. So we want to keep the rat ogres and the mutant rat ogre away from the cat, but everything else should be all good. Those archers are spear. So they have quite a few spears. So they're pretty good against large in general, which is not amazing for us. Now, this thing does have, you can basically cast Warp Lightning on yourself, and it does hurt you, but it hurts other things around you too. And that's a really early mutation you can get to, which is pretty fun. It's going to require a lot of micro to really, like, maximize that. Armored Kosars. These have Stalk? Vanguard, but not Stalk. Can't run through there. Those are light cav, right? Yeah. If we can come up through these trees to kind of block some of their missile fire, that would be great.
Guide us onward. March, Scaridasa.
We do not want to fight with our large units in the trees. If we can fight their cav in the trees, that'd be good, but... Our front line is very sus, which is clan rats and our heroes. The heroes are okay. It's pretty good armor, right? Not great. 45, 20. Okay, maybe not. Okay, like this guy's burning, as you can see. He might just run here in a second. He's gonna go down to 25% health, so we need to engage like ASAP.
Very good, master. Me smell flesh meat.
And there's the cat, I think. Yeah, we gotta watch out for that.
Unnatural experiment. Move! Our tail yours! Beasts cower tremble! Clan rats! Preach Anaka! Master Mutator mutates! What? Faster, Starry!
Okay, I'm gonna hold on to that right there.
Creature killer! Ready! What orders?
Yeah, that thing's already running off the map, which is probably fine.
March, Scotty, yes! Guide us, Horned One! Murder, kill! Clan rats! Get to the lip!
So we can get one more warp lightning off on him.
Skaven! Yes!
Okay, I think we got those guys, hopefully. Yeah, they're about to break, though.
Scream Ricato crack!
Yeah, they're running. They're done.
Throt! Yes, good. Flee! Our tail's yours! Faster! Scurry! Packmaster! We obey!
Yeah, we're probably just gonna recycle them after this. They're just taking way too much damage. Now, it is a percentage chance that you get an instability every time you upgrade them. So you don't always immediately get double instability. That's pretty unlucky, what we had there, but... Okay, there's no need to kill myself here. Who's left? These guys?
As you wish.
Okay. So we are going to have to chase these guys. So we want to try to kill as many as we can. Okay, so they're not taking any more damage because they're not at 4 yet. They also don't replenish very much at the end of battles. So really like that cat to, like, die.
Counselor's command. Where flesh meets.
Actually, I should have tried to kill her. You know, if you kill her though, then she, like, they're just gonna hire another lord that's full health. So I'm not sure if that's even worth. I do like how it's. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it seems like it's easier to identify the lords than it used to be. This is near the beginning of March when I'm recording this too, so they have had a fairly recent patch, I think a couple weeks ago. Alright, that's fine. Let's move on. Okay, so I maybe didn't need to do as much. I didn't need, like, I probably could have done it without the summoning the extra rats, but I don't know. It said it was going to be a tough battle. Those armored Kosars definitely killed some things, but I think I had, like, Skaven slaves on them or something. +8 armor piercing weapon damage. Okay, so we get juice, a little bit, only 2 food. Okay, so it looks like they may have nerfed the food that you get for battles. That's not much at all. Okay, so we can get 2 extra food. We want to get into green. Like, ASAP. Or do we just go for the money? How close are we? I don't know how close we are. 61%. I think we just probably go for money. Food is tempting, though. Yeah, see, our monsters do most of the damage. Alright, let's just go with that. Okay, so just real quickly, how this works. So you've got your food bar here, where we are currently, where does it say? Oh, we're at 48. Okay, so we need, wish it would tell us a number instead of a percentage. Okay, so settlements do not take up food anymore, it looks like. It's just armies, I think, although I'm not 100% about that. Sorry, I thought I had that silenced. Okay, well, let's look at Throt here first. So, there are a couple different ways you can go. Obviously, Inspiring Presence is really good. Extra leadership, particularly with Skaven, because your leadership is so low on a lot of your entry-level units, your clan rats, especially slaves and things like that. Like, they run so often that's really nice. Now, the blue tree is particularly good. It's almost always good when you're playing on Legendary for campaign management, but this gives you 30% extra ambush chance. That's obviously massive if you get an ambush on somebody. That's a big deal. They have obviously nerfed it, so it's not quite as strong as it used to be. And then getting something like Dictatorial, depending on where we want to go. If we go down to the Empire property, getting Corruptive or Dictatorial can be pretty good. All of these are quite nice, but especially Ancient Cunning. But you get Draft Master, which local recruitment capacity is massive because now, by default, you only have 2. So they've nerfed it. And then, of course, all this other stuff. You have Quartermaster and Lightning Strike, which are always great. Then you also have Mine All Mine, which is 30% post-battle loot and extra chances of magical items. And then you have Renowned and Feared, which is always great, too. So the blue tree, as usual, is an all-star. But especially because we're probably going to have such a diverse army, then red tree doesn't make as much sense. The clan rat is nice, but a lot of these red tree things have also been nerfed over time. Like, I'm pretty sure it used to be +8 melee attack back in the day. Blastmaster's okay, but it's just ammo and reload time. It's not extra damage on your actual missiles. It's really just only going to matter when you completely empty your clip. And then Molder Knowledge is pretty good. It's a flat 12 bonus to charge, which is handy, but the speed doesn't matter that much most of the time. And the engineering skill can be good. Those are kind of for later game units, the charge bonus. But again, it's just ammo and reload, which is cool, but it's not the same as just having flat out damage. Now, these things over here are very good, and there is an upgrade in the lab that gives like +5 ranks to an infantry unit. So if you do that, if you want to get some Storm Vermin and get the +5, then getting over to Whip Smart is pretty good for the extra melee attack and missile resist. But because I think your normal, like your sword and board, have a shield which is going to block missile damage, and you get 15% here, and then there's a technology that's going to give you another 10 or 15%. So your units are going to be surprisingly really, really resilient against like archers when you try to siege, if you want to do that. So that's pretty cool, but I think I'm just going blue tree. I could definitely see an argument for red tree, though. At least getting Inspiring Presence for the leadership aura. And then Throt, eventually you do get a Brood Horror as a mount, which is pretty good, and you get several things that buff up monsters, as you would expect. So we'll just go into that more when we get there. Tech-wise, you want to try to get to Ferocious Plans ASAP. You need this to get there, so we want to get to Tier 2 as soon as possible. We probably just want to go ahead and get this just so we can get some tech. Because right now we're just not getting any tech. But as we go through the techs, let's see, it's just going to give us Rubbish Pits, which is, you know, this is like the worst one, but we will have to get one Taskmaster platform for this tech, but this is really what we want, this Ferocious Plans. And this used to be, I think, just the Tier 2, like, Clan Rat building, but they've made it the Monster building. But you get local recruitment capacity, and this is where you want to go. Local recruitment capacity, +2 ranks for Clan Rats. I think Clan Rats are way, way better than Skaven Slaves. I know some other content creators have said that Clan Rats are bad and that you should kind of always do Skaven Slaves. Totally disagree with that. They're not that much more money. I think they've nerfed the slaves too. I feel like they used to be like 20 gold upkeep, and now they're 40. And Clan Rats are only like 88 or something gold. So they're very, very close in cost, gold-wise. Percentage-wise, yes, they're like double the cost. But I mean, it's in flat amounts, it's not that much more. And they just have more armor, more melee defense, more melee attack. They're just way, way better units. Also, this right here gives expendable to Clan Rats. So that is one perk of the default Skaven Slaves, is that whenever they run, they don't cause leadership penalties to your other units. Well, you can get that with Clan Rats too right here. So I just think Clan Rats are way better, especially once you get this, the expendable, and the 10 armor. Then they're pretty good for their cost. They're still like trash compared to a lot of other infantry units in the game, but they're better than Skaven Slaves. So this is what you want to get early. You want to get to this stuff, and then eventually there aren't that many good monster upgrades, unfortunately, but getting the 15 charge bonus for Rat Ogres, that is actually pretty nice if you're constantly able to charge cycle them. And then late game, the Hell Pit Abomination's like, okay, it's not great, but this Menace from Below is extremely good too. The missile resist 10% for all units during a siege for all armies, and +10 leadership on sieges. A lot of your fights are going to be sieges, so that is absolutely massive. You really, really want that. And then the weapons teams are going to put in a lot of work too for us eventually. So getting those for the extra 25% ammo is pretty handy. And then this does give missile strength and does give range, and both of those are quite good. The rest of the techs are not that great. At least early on, like a couple of these things are okay. But this is really where you want to be. This stuff over here is pretty good in the middle at times. Maybe while you're waiting to upgrade volatile plants or whatever, while you're waiting to get your arsenal or something, which I don't remember if that's tier 3 or tier 4. But getting this stuff over here for the 10 growth, a little bit of food, leadership, the 10% movement range. All of these are good. And you have to have take everything to get the movement range anyways. So, in other words, start here. Eventually, kind of in the mid-game, work your way over to here. Early game, you can switch over to here to pick up some of these. And then when you absolutely have to, then come down here and grab these. But these are pretty bad, especially for Throt. It's like a bunch of stuff for your night, your gutter runners, night runners. Ambush chance is good, but most of this is trash. And then this stuff down here is like for plague monks, which are good if you're the disease guy, but otherwise not that great. And then late game, there are like some really good ones, but that's kind of how that works. And then the Flesh Lab here, it's like so many different, as I'm saying, like variables when you're playing Skaven. Basically how this works, there are 3 different components. You have a default laboratory here. So these you can activate over and over again for the cost. They do go on a cooldown. I don't remember what it is. It's probably like 10 turns or something. So you can pay 20 food to harvest organs, which basically gives all of your monsters 200% replenishment. So this is one way to top them off if a lot of your units are unstable and, you know, they aren't allowed to replenish very much. This will top them off, usually. 100 mutagens, so for 5,000 gold, you can just cap out at 100 mutagen, which is good if you really need that, or you just have a bunch of extra gold. And then Unclean Energy, it basically heals up Throt all the way, and then gives you 2 extra Rat Ogres you can summon in a fight, and your Leadership Aura is a little bit bigger, so it's okay. Not great, but it's a pretty cheap cost, at just 10 mutagen. And then this, your Skaven slaves come in with 1 to 5 random augmentations, so that can make them a lot stronger. Will that make them better than clan rats? Maybe. It depends on which augs they're able to get. If they're able to get the lightning aug, or there are a few that could be good there. Now, I don't think they'll be unstable either, so we'll try it out. I mean, that is one scenario where maybe the Skaven slaves are better. We'll just have to test and see. But you cannot recycle them for juice if you do that. And you don't have to have any, or you have to claim 1 growth vat batch, which I'll show you that here in a second, to get this. But that's pretty easy to do. +3 for all growth vat units when you recruit them, so that's handy. Juice gained from battles, 5%, which isn't a lot, it's okay. And then here you have to use 4 batches to get to this. Increased food generation, increases your total capacity on mutagen, which is handy, because you don't want to overcap on that. And then extra food from recycling units doesn't seem like a big deal, but if you are really nerfed on food from battles, maybe this is better than I thought. You do get 1 extra augment for each one of your growth vat units, which obviously is very strong. Minus 25% upkeep for instabilities on a unit. So if you get like double instability, it's minus 50% upkeep. That's huge if you can just keep those units alive. Extra unit on growth vat, which is good. And then this one is you get an extra 10% ward save if you get 4 augments on something. So that's pretty nice. That's really good. But these take a lot. These are 8 batches. So how do you get batches? Well, there's a bar over here, and whenever we win battles, so we got 14 this turn, and then our passive gain was 60 for whatever reason. When you get to 500, you can cash it in. It counts as a batch used. You get 100 mutagen, and you get some units, random units that you can hire in a global recruitment pool, and some of them are going to include wolf rats. Now, a lot of those units kind of suck. It's going to be like slaves, clan rats, slingers, that type of stuff for the most part. Next one, if you wait until you get to 650, then you're guaranteed to get rat ogres. Now, I'm pretty sure you cannot get higher level units than what, like, the guaranteed unit is. So, in other words, I'm not 100% about this, but I don't think you can do a wolf rat cluster and get a hell pit abomination, for example. But you could get multiples of the same. So if you do a rat ogre cluster, you're guaranteed to get 1 rat ogre, but you could get more than 1. And then this brood horror, if you go to 800, 900 is mutant rat ogre, and hell pit abomination is 1,000. So I would personally try to get to either rat ogres or brood horrors. Rat ogres are 150 more, brood horrors are 150 on top of that. It's because the Brood Horrors are very, very good units. And that's not like that expensive. It's kind of like a middle ground type of thing. Rat Ogres are cheaper and they're pretty good, but they're not as strong as Brood Horrors. So Brood Horrors are very good because they're really fast too. I think they regenerate. They're just all around pretty badass units. Okay. So that's when you cash those in, that's how you get those VATs. That's how you upgrade the lab, pretty much. And that's, you can recycle these really injured units and get juice. So if I recycle this unit, then I'm going to get 150 juice towards this number, which is a lot. Obviously, this battle here just gave me like 7. It's just not that good. Okay, so as far as these augments go, you use these this mutagen here in order to augment your units. And you have to have the previous ones unlocked in order to get more augs. So if I unlock this one right now, it would allow me to have access to this and this. But on this unit, it's going to be the full 25. If I put it on this thing that is already unstable, then I get half off. And it's only 12. So that's the tension. It's like, do I want to... You can basically stack all of them on one thing and just try to, like, upgrade if you want to get to very specific augs. Or you can actually try to put them on your good units. And just kind of see what happens. So I think right here, I do want to put some of these on my Mutant Rat Ogre. This one's really good. You basically get two for the price of 1, but it's random. So I'm going to try it out and see what we get here. Okay. So I got Physical Resist, Speed, Vanguard, and Leadership. So that's pretty good. So now he's got 3 augs on him. And that unlocked these. So this gives Guardian. So again, that's going to make my lords and all that stuff take 15% reduced physical damage. And then this one is casualty replenishment rate and minus 15% upkeep. The upkeep on this is 260, which is pretty expensive. So I could put another AUG on this guy if I wanted to. It would unlock this, which is questionable. Like, this is where you get into the min-max stuff. It's like, yeah, your unit's going to hit really hard, but it has no armor if you do that. I don't think you can go into negative armor. No replenishment ever on this unit. You have to use that special thing that gives plus 200% replenishment to fight through this, I think. But you do a lot of damage. So some of the blue ones are actually not that great. Some of them are okay. Stalk and Unspottable. That one's good. 30 armor and 15% missile resist is good. But then up here at the top, you get 3 blue augments for the price of 1, but it costs 50. So all of these cost 25. The purple ones cost 50. This is Undead, which I think is kind of weak. It basically just gives it like a weak regeneration. And you know, you're immune to terror and all that stuff. Like Undead units, but, or at least immune to fear. But not that great. And then this Acidic Musk, it's like, it does damage to you and people around you. And you can activate that once every minute. But unless your unit has a ton of replenishment, like maybe you put this on a Hell Pit Abomination or something that has a lot of HP, like late game, maybe that's really good. But early game, not that great. So these green ones are usually your best bet. Like, there are some very good ones in here. This is the Lightning one. It's pretty cheap. But I would probably just do this. Like, you're usually going to get some pretty good value out of it. Okay. So I guess we'll keep it at this. I mean, I could throw down this one. That's the Flaming Attack one that I mentioned that can be pretty good. I kind of want Guardian on this one, but I guess we'll wait on that. And then you have some infantry ones too, which are pretty good. So for Storm Vermin, you can get extra armor, Stalk, Vanguard deployment, it's really handy. Frenzy, that's basically 10% extra damage, 10 extra melee attack, so that's handy. That's the +5 rank I was talking about, which is really good to get you over the edge in that red tree, so you get some of those bonuses. This is replenishment and upkeep. And this is the 2 uncommon ones. But I only have 25 mutagen left. If I sink it into him to get more upgrades on monsters, I also could potentially get more juice if it gets to like tier 4 instability. I assume I'd get 50 more juice. And I'd get to unlock some stuff. Okay, I'm gonna try this on him.
Surprise! Surprise!
Get all those mods. He still is tier 3. 150 juice. Alright, let's go one more. I'm trying to get him tier 4 so I get more juice. Okay, that one's pretty good. I think maybe we try to get that.
Give creation thing life.
I don't know why this cracks me up using so much of this on this dude. It has 10 augs. Maybe you can't get... I thought there was an instability 4 where the unit would, like, literally die. Okay, I guess we'll hold for now. Alright. Over here on this guy. Sorry, I know, like I said, it's a bunch of talking on this one, unfortunately. We will get a lot more fights in future episodes. He kind of needs more armor, like, desperately. Once the Brood Horror comes out, it's a little bit better, but... Shock Collar is quite good for beefing up your monsters. Yeah, let's go with that. And we got the banner. Is that already equipped? Ancillary, banner. Okay.
It's alive!
I guess we just go for this. Probably just auto it. I just don't want to fight it. We should be able to take some pretty good, okay, 14 off of that. 2 food. Yeah, they've made the food a lot more scarce off of battles. You used to get like 20 or something in a battle, so it's pretty extreme how they've rebalanced the food economy. Okay, this is another thing with Skaven where you can increase the settlement. If you want to make something like tier 3, you can do that. It just costs a lot more. So we can take it as is. You can also create an under empire, which we won't go into all that because I know we're going to run out of time. But in another episode, we can maybe do that. Now, raising it gives you 10 juice, which is kind of cool. Can sack. You always have to loot and occupy that. You cannot peacefully occupy as Skaven. So you're always going to have, like, that negative 30 public order. I'm trying to think if Under Empire... Maybe the Under Empire is more important for food and stuff like that, but I feel like this close to my capital, I just want the properties. But maybe this creates a space where I could try to make Skaven Under Empires like somewhere else. There's a chance, especially if I really need food, that's more useful. Especially if it's like yellow properties or like this over here, like it might be better instead of trying to take this to just Skaven like Under Empire it. Because you make pretty good money off of the Under Empires. And they can't interact with it. Or it's more difficult for them to interact with it. They can't just like retake it if it's an area that you don't plan on trying to hold. If you're just trying to shut somebody up that's messing with you. 5 leadership is kind of a big deal. I think I'll get that, and then we'll carry on through the blue tree. But if we're going to have, like, some Skaven slaves early... Hard to hit or armor. The post-battle loot is quite good, though. Shock Collar's nice, but would kind of need money early. Guess we'll go with that. Okay. And then what do we want? We kind of need a little bit more front line. Got a couple of slingers is probably fine. Yeah, I just want a beefier front line. I think the spears, just whatever has the highest melee defense is what I want. I don't expect him to actually do damage. Okay. And then we can't... I think we just need to take... We might have to take a wolf juice early. We'll see how it goes. But I do want to get that lab tech eventually that gives us the clone warfare. Some of these are pretty good, and the growth fat, like, some of these really early ones are definitely nice. Okay, so we'll do that. No regiments of renown over here. What do we want as far as this goes? Corruption, I think I like that. Plus food, recruit. Okay, so you do have a recruitment option there. It looks like food is definitely going to be a big deal. So many variables to balance. Okay, and then we're kind of working on techs. Over here, this thing, I think we just throw down... Do we want growth, or... Probably just growth. I mean, we're getting devious plans already. Or we could get... Devious plans there, and then here, get these. We're not going to be able to trade the animal cages. Here we get the growth. Yeah, let's do that. Let's put growth there.
I am Throt.
And then over here, get rubbish pits, and then we can get the tech off at this. And we'll get the growth in the main place where we need it a lot more. Okay. I think that's basically it. Okay, yeah, these guys have no army left. Big deal. Okay. Nothing going on there. Alright. So many variables. Okay. Alright, so that's pretty much going to be it for this episode. So sorry, I know it's just going through, you know, the instruction manual of how to play Skaven here. But the next few episodes, like I said, we will be moving a lot faster. I just like to explain it early, just because I know some of you guys want to play it yourself at home, or just kind of compare your strategies to mine and think about, you know, what you might want to do. Oh, cool. Bonus versus large for everybody for a short duration. That's nice, because that's a huge problem Skaven have, are versus large, and there are quite a few large units that Kislev has, so... Yeah. And this guy, if we have to mess with him early on too. Obviously all the Chaos people are going to have a lot of monster stuff. Okay, so... Oh, is that not walled? What? Do they not have walled settlements? That's walled. Fort Ostrux or whatever just isn't walled. Okay. You love to see it. Alright, so I guess that's where we'll start off next time. I think we'll be able to take it. We'll see. We might just recycle this dude at the start of the turn. Maybe should have done it last turn. I'll think about it. We might throw one more augment on him, see if we can make him super unstable just to get some extra juice. Or we might hold it. We'll see. But anyways, thank you very much. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Again, we're going to pick it up. It's going to be a lot faster, a lot more battles from here on out. I just kind of, for newer players or players that haven't played this in a while, with all these changes to Skaven over time, with Immortal Empires, I just wanted to get everyone on the same page so that you kind of understand what I'm doing and where I'm coming from when I make my choices. But a lot more bloodshed, a lot more battles in future episodes. But anyways, thanks, have a good day, and we'll see you next time.